Hello everybody and welcome back to my show. This is your host Ashriel Moore, the ambassador of the African Diaspora Collective here in Israel. As per usual, I want to continue to expose you to communities of African ancestry here in Israel, which many people are not even aware of our existence here. So obviously you don't know anything almost about the particulars of each of these communities, if you even know about the communities themselves. But this time I want to focus in on the African Hebrew Israelite community that is stationed in the Village of Peace in Dimona, which is the largest concentration of African Americans outside of America in any place in the world, and the largest concentration of vegans any place in the world. And I want to focus specifically on the journey from America to Israel and how that actually aligns with the biblical prophecies, how the biblical prophecies have actually been at play in every stage and every step of the way. You could be able to see how providence had actually been involved in this move back to Israel, and it couldn't have been anything outside of providence, because nowhere in the world this could have worked the way it's working now. And I want to tie it to biblical prophecies, to biblical scriptures that could be able to corroborate everything that is actually being discussed. The African Hebrew Israelite community actually traced their roots back to the 10 tribes of Israel that were exiled out of the land in 721 BC, but also a remnant of those who were exiled in 586 BC and in 70 AD. And they then migrated to North Africa and then down the Niger River, and then found refuge in Senegal and Gambia and Benin and Togo and Nigeria and all of these places, and then were taken from there into America to be enslaved. Now I want to deal with the prophecies that it actually gave us some type of understanding of this happening later on in the generations, and how those prophecies played out, and then how the prophecy of the return actually played out. Now, I want to deal first of all with the concept of chosenness, because we talk about Israel or Israelites or Judeans, Jews being a chosen people. What does that actually mean? Because some people have the wrong understanding. Chosenness does not mean that you are above anybody. It doesn't mean that you're better than anybody. It doesn't mean that you are more unique, more outstanding. It simply means that you have entered into an agreement. You have entered into a covenant with the God of Israel, that your responsibility then is this. What is that you're expected to carry out now that you are in this agreement with the God of Israel? Let's read it. Exodus 19:5-6. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. For all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. Now, what does this mean in essence? That means that you are in alignment with principles that are sustaining and giving life. These principles, these elements are elements that if you lock into them, anybody lock into them, whoever you may be, you then could be able to, first of all, enhance your life. And then secondly, you will put yourself on a path where you will be protected from a lot of the woes of this world. Not because you're greater than anybody, but simply because the world is operating on an axis of lies and of evil. And the world is operating in darkness, and the people are operating in gross darkness, as Isaiah says. And so as a result of that, you have a small light, even you have a small candle in an incredibly dark room. That candle then would have the ability to light up the entire room. The small candle would have the ability to light up that entire room. And so this is what it means to actually be in alignment with those principles that are procreating or that are given and sustaining life. What principles are those? Well, the commandments of God. What are those commandments? Well, the first commandment is to love God with all thy heart, soul, and might. How do we conceive the element of God. What is this? Well, it says that God is a spirit and should be worshipped as spirit, or in spirit and in truth. But when we say God, we give God attributes, right? We say God is love, God is peace, God is thus, God is thus. So when you look at all these attributes that you've given to this spiritual element that is running this universe, then that is what you're talking. This is what you align yourself with. You align yourself with love. You align yourself with truth. You align yourself with peace. You align yourself with all of those elements that you say are indeed God. And so being in alignment with his principles and his commandments is, first of all, yes, loving him, loving all of those elements that you're talking about. And then on top of that, loving thy neighbor as thyself. These are the two primary commandments. If you can't fulfill these commandments, then everything else, every regular custom or tradition that you do won't mean anything. It wouldn't mean anything. You could do whatever customs you want to do all day, every day. It's not going to mean anything if you can't align yourselves with love, with peace, with equality, with justice, with these principles, these attributes that we give to God, or that God is, and then love your neighbor as yourself. There's nothing else to talk about. I'm sorry, nothing else to talk about. Now we're going to continue here. Israel was exiled. Israel was exiled many times in the past. It was exiled in 721 BC by the Assyrians. It was exiled in 586 BC by the Babylonians. It was exiled in 70 AD by the Romans. Then after that, you had all these foreign powers from 70 AD up until now who had controlled the land of Israel and didn't necessarily see it as an inheritance for themselves. They just saw it as just another portion, of their empire, right? The children of Israel were the only ones, who viewed Israel, the land of Israel, as a unique place. The Quran says in Surah 2 122, O children of Israel, remember my favor which I have bestowed upon you, and that I preferred you over the worlds. This is giving you an indication that God, and even some people who refer to this spiritual element in other names, still has this covenant that he has come into with the children of Israel. But the land of Israel was not given to the children of Israel as an inheritance, and they can just do whatever they want with it. Not, like the inheritance that we think about today. You inherited a house, a home from your parents. And so, you can do whatever you want to do with the home. You can sell it if you want to sell it. You could break it down if you want to break it down. You could divide it between a couple people. You could rent it out if you want to. But that's not the same with the land of Israel, because the land of Israel does not belong to us. All right. We were expected to be stewards of the land, but we don't own. This is God's land. This is God's real estate. It don't belong to any of us. So let's just get that clear off the jump. So we're going to continue here because I want to really help you to get a wider understanding about the move of the African Hebrew Israelites. But I have to tie you in, first of all, into the understanding of this chosenness aspect of Israelites, because they're Israelites. They're Hebrews, they're Israelites. And so what is this? What does it mean to be chosen? Because a lot of people have the wrong concept of chosenness. Genesis 1:26 and 27. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowls of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them, and then called their name Adam. That means very simply that there was this nation, there was this people, there was a civilization that God created. There was supposed to be a representation of all of those elements that we call God on this planet, on this earth. And then obviously we fell from that mission down to Abraham, who who was willing to take up the mantle once again and to enter into a new covenant with God. He entered this covenant with God, and it was promised to him that in his seed should all the nations of the earth be blessed. What does that mean? In his seed should all the nations of the earth be blessed. That means that if we're serious about carrying out this responsibility, and if we do it, and if we not only do it, but we take it and we replicate it, and we bring light to a world that is in total darkness, to be able to light up the way and to show them a different way, an alternative to the way that we're currently living in now, then we'll have the ability to change the trajectory that a lot of people are going on, and not only changing that trajectory, but also to provide them the ability to be able to prevent themselves from falling into a ditch. Because as it says, when the blind is leading the blind, then both of them are going to fall into a ditch. And so even at times when you take that small candle and you light it in the midst of a big room, that small candle lights up the entire room. That is the responsibility of the children of Israel, to provide light, to provide direction, to provide, another way, to provide what is called tikkun olam, repair to a world that is definitely sick, absolutely sick, 100%. Let's continue. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Obviously, Adam and Eve, that civilization did not carry that out. So it was moved over then to other civilizations to carry this responsibility out. And whenever you don't carry that responsibility out from this place that is called the land of Israel, the land does not hold you here. You have to go. You can't stay here. The land spits out those elements that are not in alignment with the soil of this land. And if you don't believe it, just look at history. Look all throughout history. Even foreign powers, yes, they were here for a period, but they cannot stay. But who continues to return? Israel. Get exiled and then come back. Then exiled and then come back. Because we're on this perpetual cycle. We're in this perpetual cycle of God giving us the blueprint. We don't carry it out. We don't carry out his command. We don't obey the commandments. We fall short. We're exiled from the land. We are all over. Now we ask God to have mercy on us. He sends leaders, teachers, guides to be able to guide us out of the condition that we're in. We come back into favor with God. We come back into a good condition. We come back on top. Then we do the exact same thing and go right back around. This has been that perpetual cycle. And so now this is the return of our people, of Israelites that are part of those tribes of Israel. I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking specifically about the African Hebrew Israelite community and the members of the community that are of the tribes of Israel who returned to Israel after the 400 years of enslavement and the 2,000 years of exile from the land. And the reason why we were exiled, obviously, is because we were not in alignment with those elements, with those statutes, with those commandments that are expected to give and to sustain our lives here in this land. Now, let's talk about the exile from the land, going into the United States of America, because this community didn't end up in America just by happenstance, right? There are a lot of things that happened, but I'm focusing on the spiritual and the prophetic elements that had given us already an indication thousands of years before that these things were actually going to be carried out. And I want to start with Abraham. In Genesis, the 15th chapter and the 13th verse, that it says, and he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. The ancestors of the African Hebrew Israelites were enslaved in America for 400 plus years. Now, whether you started from 1448, or you started from 1555, or you started from 1619, wherever you end up, you're going to end up 400 plus years. So that means that then, now, or up until now, that element should have already been behind us. We experience that enslavement. We experience this prophecy coming into fruition. Now, let's talk about how this was actually going to be carried out. When you look at Deuteronomy 28 and 68, it says, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spoke unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondsmen and bondswomen, and no man should buy you." When it says that no man should buy you, it means that no man should redeem you. No man should be able to take you out of that state. No man should be able to come and say, okay, we're going to help you to climb up out of this situation. That's not going to happen. This is a prophecy that is actually going to be taking place here. And it says, into Egypt again. Now, we know the children of Israel are already in Egypt as slaves. But now when it says into Egypt again, it's not talking about the actual geographical location of Egypt. It's talking about the environment. It's talking about the conditions. It's talking about the idea of enslavement once again. But this time it's going to be in a place where you're going to be taken into that place by ships. And we know who were taken into those places by ships. The people who are now saying that they're returned as African Hebrew Israelites, their ancestors were taken, our ancestors were taken into Americas, into North America, South America, into the Caribbeans via these ships. The Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, all of these ships and others, the good ship Jesus they called, they were taken into these places and enslaved. And how were they taken? By ships. But also when you look at Deuteronomy 28 and 48, it gets a little more graphic. It says, "Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee." That yoke was definitely on our necks. The ships were there. The yokes of iron were on our necks and on our arms and on our legs. We were sold at the auction blocks as bondsmen and bondswomen. These things absolutely did take place. So this is just giving you an indication of what prophecy looks like when it's actually unfolding in real time. Let's continue. Psalms 83 and 4. "They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." And so when you look now at a significant amount of people of African American descent in America, and you're trying to figure out what is their identity, who are they, where do they come from? Africa and America are two continents. You don't say that they're Asian Americans, you say they're Chinese and Japanese Americans. You don't say that they're European Americans, you say they're Irish or otherwise Americans. But when we specifically deal with the African Americans, and then most people don't even know where these people come from. I mean, Africa and America. I mean, there are 55 states on the continent that, by the way, are official states. But generally, when you look at the slave voyages, a significant amount of those people who were taken into the Americas, into North America, South America, and the Caribbean to be enslaved, they came from what was called the Bight of Biafra. The Bight of Biafra is right on the coast there of Nigeria. 35% of the people who were taken from that place identified as Israelites. They maintained customs, traditions, oral history. They maintained a lot of, the rites and the rituals that they had brought from Israel down to Nigeria. And along with 200 other ethnic groups, they knew exactly who they were. And one of the ways where they were trying to disconnect, because one of the ways that you could disconnect the people from their identity, one is to take them away from the elders that have that information they can be able to pass on to them orally. But secondly, to disconnect them, to change their names, to give them a different doctrine, to give them a different understanding of reality, that they would now be totally oblivious to their origin, to where their information actually comes from who they actually are. And one of the ways that they did that was to change their names. So they would change the names of the people who arrived to America, and like we saw on the movie, I think that was Roots. It was when Kunta Kinte, they beat him into accepting the name of Toby.
What's your name?
Toby.
This is one of the ways that they changed the people's identity. So when we look here at Psalms 83 and 4, it says that the name of Israel should no longer be in remembrance. Not that Israel, the nation of Israel, the children of Israel, wherever they are in the world, will be absolutely forgotten, but that specific elements within the nation of Israel will be forgotten, will be methodically carved out of history. And so that's why you call today a lot of those Israelite tribes, primarily the 10 Israelite tribes that were exiled way back in 721 BC, you say that these are the lost tribes of Israel. The lost tribes of Israel. Now, these people have been maintaining their customs, their traditions, their culture in a lot of places in the world, but the world see them as lost. They don't know who they are. They don't know their heritage. They don't know their history. Most of them do. But the people who were taken into America, of those 200 ethnic groups, when you had the Israelites amongst them, the Israelites didn't know who they were. They were stripped of that, fulfilling this prophecy in Psalms 83 and 4. So now we're arriving to the point where that 400 years of enslavement, the 2,000 years of exile is to be up. And now we're talking about the return to the ancestral land, return to Israel, the return of those remnants of Israel and of Judah who were exiled from the land. Israel exiled in 721 BC, Judah exiled in 586. Judah, Benjamin, and a little bit of Levi, who were in the south, who were in the nation or in the kingdom of Judah, exiled in 586 and in 70 AD. Now those exiles are going to return to a land of Israel. Some people say that, no, this is historic Palestine. No, this is the land of Israel. This is Judea. This was the name of it. The name, yes, the name was changed to Palestina, or Syria Palestina, by Hadrian in 137 AD. But that has no reference to the actual name of the land. And again, that was one of the ways that he was trying to erase the identity of the place, so that the name, so that the consciousness, so that the connecting element of Israel or Israelites to Israel would no longer be there, to break that chain. And so, but that didn't work, because again, we're here. So Jeremiah 29:14 says, "And I will be found of you, saith the Lord, and I will turn away your captivity, and I will gather you from all the nations and from all the places whither I have driven you." Wherever you are in Europe, you're taken into Europe by the Romans in 70 AD. You're in North Africa, North Africa, because you fled there or you were driven out. You're in South Africa because you migrated there. You were in East Africa because you fled the persecution of the Arabs, or of the Mamluks, or of the Crusades, or otherwise. You were in West Africa because you went down to the Niger River. You were looking for a place of refuge and a place that had a pretty good stream of water that you can be able to, establish yourself. You're in Kaifeng in China. You're all over the world. You're in India. You're all over the world. So wherever you are, I'm going to return you back from these places back to here. God is saying here in Jeremiah. Let's continue. Zephaniah 3:20. At that time I will bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, for I will make you a name and a praise amongst all the people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith the Lord. Now, the whole world's going to be watching this happen. That this captivity that we've gone through, that the African Hebrew Israelite community members had gone through while they were in America, the whole world is going to be watching now as that captivity is turned and as they are returned to the ancestral land of Israel. And it's happening in real time. And now we're going to go into the geopolitical procedures to be able to show you how this actually unfolded. In the 1800s, there were people who were coming to the knowledge of who they were once again by beginning to read the Bible and other books that given them, a bit of knowledge, or at the least a tip of the iceberg, so they could be able to now start to go deeper and deeper and deeper, because it really didn't make any sense to them that we are just slaves. I mean, this is our identity, this is our destiny, this is who we were, this is who we are. And for a long period of time, it was forbidden to read, write, preach, or teach. Right? And it was punishable by death. Now, in addition to that, you also had those elements who were working overtime to disconnect these Israelites and others from their identity. There's a book that's called The Religious Instructions to the Negro by John Colcock Jones, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember his name exactly. But what he was discussing there was that there were a lot of elements, like, for example, the gatherings. It didn't start on Sundays. The gatherings started on Saturdays, because these were the days that some of these Israelites were known to have kept as a solemn day. And so those were the days that they initially would have off of work, and they were being taught. Now, they would take some of the leaders from within the midst, those people who had better verbal skills, oratory skills, the ability to be able to learn information and then pass it on to the other slaves. They would take those people, fill them with information, with knowledge that the slave master wanted to pass on to them, and then it was more authentic coming from them, because you wouldn't want to listen to the slave master, but you listen to a fellow slave, quote unquote. But this is somebody who's now been propped up in order to represent the interests of the slave master. Sounds familiar, right? Of course. So they would bring those people and allow them now to be teaching on Saturdays and other things like that. So that there were elements that remind you of Israelite culture and traditions. They were on those slave plantations. Let's continue. In the 1800s, the move had begun. Now, something else was happening also in the 1800s. In the 1800s, in 1822, the nation of Liberia was established. Right? Liberia was established, and it was established to actually be a hub for those African Americans who wanted to return, to repatriate to Africa. They had the ability to do so coming through Liberia. It was established by what we'll call Amerigo Liberians. And so this, connect all the dots now. Follow me. It's going to get super interesting. In 1948, fast forward, 1948, the modern state of Israel was established here in the land of Israel. Right? Prior to 1948, those African Hebrew Israelites and others of their ancestors had no idea that there was an actual land of Israel. They didn't see the land of Israel as a real geographical location. For them, it was a utopia. It was in the sky. It was somewhere that wasn't really real, but they wanted to access it only after they die. This was, that by and by, the sweet pie in the sky and all of those things. It had nothing to do with their reality here on the ground. They were seeing about Canaan's land. They were seeing about returning. They were seeing about the River Jordan. They were seeing about Jericho. Joshua fought the battles of Jericho. They were seeing about swing low, sweet chariot coming forward to carry me home. But as far as they were concerned, most of these hymns were just passed on from generation to generation, and a lot of that information was passed on from generation to generation, but people really didn't see that as a real geographical location. They didn't see Israel as a real geographical location until the establishment of the state of Israel in 1948. And so the establishment of the state of Israel in 1948, once again, was the impetus for turning our hearts and our minds back to this land. And as God would have it, obviously, it's not our will that needs to be done, but it's God's will that needs to be done. And God will choose who he wants to have his will done. And as it's written also, and this is, as I said, I'm going to be jumping between the Hebrew text, the Bible, the Torah, the Bible, the New Testament for those who are Christians, and the Quran for those who are Muslims, so that you can be able to see how God's providence has been working on all angles all throughout. And so when we look at Revelation 17:17, it says, "For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will." Not our will, not what we want, not how we see things, not what we believe. God's will being done. God's will being done by other people. It is important for us to be able to recognize how God is working through other people. Now in 1966, now you have Liberia in place. Now you have the state of Israel in place as a real live geographical location. We fast forward now. We're going to the 1960s. In the 1960s, in America, you had the rise of the civil rights movements. In America, you had all of those other organizations and movements that were trying to fight against this oppressive system. You're having those who are starting to realize that America is not the place for us. And you had Malcolm that was talking about any place is better than here, and then you had Martin Luther King that was trying to integrate into that society, but understood obviously they just didn't want us. So it was it was nothing we could do about that. But they fought for it and to integrate. And then later on, when he spoke to Harry Belafonte, he said that he felt that he had integrated his people into a burning house. Then you had others, who were the Black Panthers, and there were a lot of movements at that time. But all of those were a smokescreen to be able to allow the African Hebrew Israelite community members at that time to get out. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to get out of America. 400 people to get up and to just leave and to go somewhere else, never that. That system never allow you to. They'll make up all type of excuses and reasons. You can't get a passport. You can't such and such. You're up to no good. You're doing such and such. You're conspiring against the state. You're Call into Israel. Israel, don't let them come over there. Call into Liberia. Liberia, don't allow them to come over there. Mess everything up. So something had to be happening then to be able to be the smokescreen to allow for the meantime for this community to be able to exit America. It was almost like a jail cell, a maximum security prison that don't allow you to be able to get out. They have you locked down in debt and locked down in this. And most people didn't even leave their neighborhoods. Never been out of the city. Now you're going to a totally different place to establish a new reality for yourself. Was absolutely almost unreal. So all these things had to happen to allow that to be able to take place. So in 1966, my leader and teacher, Ben Ami Ben Israel, had the vision that it was time, the angel Gabriel came to deliver to him that it was time for those remnants to leave America, to come back to the land of our forefathers, to reestablish here what is called the long-awaited kingdom of God on earth. Now, first of all, that vision, how we know that this is true? Is there any biblical references, prophetic references also to be able to show that? Absolutely. Let's go into them. Amos 3:7 says, "Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he revealeth his secrets unto his servants, the prophets." Most people have this idea that something is just going to happen out the blue skies. How? I don't know. But the scripture says that God doesn't work like that. He doesn't just do things. He's going to reveal those secrets. He's going to reveal the plan to his servants, to those people who are prepared to submit to his will, so that they could be used as those elements to be able to carry out his will. That's how that works. And so Ben Ami in 1966, seeing the condition of our people, he had totally submitted himself to be used as a vessel to be able to lead this portion of the people who were in exile, who had been enslaved, back to our ancestral homeland. Do we have any further references? Absolutely. Jeremiah 51:20 and 21. Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war, for with thee will I break in pieces the nations, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms. You're going to be the ones who are going to be used. People, flesh and blood are going to be used. They're going to be spiritual elements that take on these vessels to allow these people to be used as, as those people who are going to carry out God's will, who are going to be those battle axes and those weapons of war, who are going to break in pieces those other kingdoms. Now, when I say that the responsibility or the calling to Ben-Ami was to come and to establish the long-awaited kingdom of God on earth, this was in accordance with the prophecy of Daniel 2:44. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. This kingdom will break into pieces all other kingdoms. This kingdom shall last forever. We just heard that we are the battle axes and the weapons of war, and our responsibility or will be used for breaking into pieces all these other kingdoms. And then Daniel says that this kingdom will break in pieces all those other kingdoms. Not by power, nor by might, but by my spirit, says God. That means that those spiritual elements that house these vessels are going to be the ones that's going to have to carry it out. You're going to have to carry it out with what is called in the book of Daniel with skill and understanding. You have to do it in a different way. You're going to have to do it in a more complex way. You're going to have to do it in a more sophisticated way. You're going to have to do it in a way where you won't be able to be stopped by all these physical elements. Spiritual war. It's going to be in the mind. It's going to be a way that you could get around all of these physical elements that the world has put in place to prevent us from being able to use our minds to be able to carry out this, God's plan. So that's how it's going to happen. By the Spirit of God that's operating through us with skill and with understanding. Let's continue. Deuteronomy 18:18. I will raise them up a prophet from amongst their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth. Again, this is not our will being done. This is the will of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob being done. He is going to choose people that he feels are prepared to be able to carry this out. Even if we don't think so. I mean, Moses couldn't even talk, but he was chosen. David was a shepherd boy, but he was chosen. I mean, so who are we to determine who, what is the criteria for somebody being chosen by God to carry out his will? God will do his big thing and get it done with the people who he feels are most fit for the job. And he'll put people around them to be able to carry it out. Right? He's not going to just put them out there on their own and make them look crazy. He'll make sure they have all of the covering that's necessary, all of the people, all the environment, all of the, everything is put in place even around them to be able to make sure that this is carried out. Let's continue. Psalms 118:26. Blessed be he that cometh in the name of the Lord. He's going to get the blessings. He's coming not in his name. And that's what our leader and teacher Ben-Ami said. It's not me. If it was up to me, I would have let this go a long time ago. But he's coming in the name of the God of Israel to carry out a plan that is not his plan, but is a providential plan. And he just one of those vessels that were used in order to be able to carry out this plan. Now, that's 1966. In 1967, the move had begun from Israel, follow it, to Liberia. From Israel to Liberia that was set up in 1822. Remember also, Liberia was the determining vote for the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Liberia was the determining vote for the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Liberia was established in 1822 to be able to be that place of return for those expats who would like to return to Africa. You have to see how everything is playing out. I mean, this is it could only be providence. And Ashriel, do you have any references biblically for that? Absolutely. Let's jump into them. Ezekiel 20:33 and 38. As I live, saith the Lord, surely with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out, and I will rule over you, and I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and I will purge out from among you the rebels. The wilderness of the people was not necessarily just a wilderness, but it was a place that will allow us the ability to be able to be renewed, to be purged of a lot of, those Western, those slavery mentalities that we had picked up being in America for so long, and to prepare ourselves, to purge ourselves, to purify ourselves before entering once again into the promised land, like our fathers had to do when they came out of Egypt, 430 years in Egypt, and then before going into Israel. Otherwise, it would have just taken that Egyptian mindset right into Israel, and there wouldn't have been a difference. So we had to maintain ourselves, first of all, for about 2.5 years in Liberia, and then continue on into Israel. Now, something else took place in 1967, which was very unique as well. Jerusalem was separated. And in 1967, after the 6-day war, in 6 days, Israel managed to reunite Jerusalem. And obviously, as part of that redemption plan for the returning of all of the Israelites back to Jerusalem, obviously would have to be united. I mean, this was the united capital of the nation of Israel under David. So of course it needed to be reunited. And so that was taking place. Obviously, you have to just follow the script, follow it, and you'll be able to see it all the way through. Now, they arrived in Liberia. They spent 2.5 years in Liberia. But the first members of the community who had come to Israel came in 1968 in May. But something happened in 1968 in April in America. This is what happened.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. A long life, longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
The great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his final sermon on April 3rd, 1968. And what he said finally was that, I have been to the mountaintop, I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And in 1968, in May, the first members of the African Hebrew Israelites, those remnants of Israelites who were taken into America to be enslaved, had returned to the soil of this land. Now, we celebrate today that the commemoration of that return to Israel in the holy day is called New World Passover. Now, this New World Passover represents obviously that return to Israel, but it also represents that oath, that biblical prophecy once again, that it says that no longer will we just give reverence and say thanks and praise the God who had brought us out of Egypt, but also that God who had brought us out of the lands of the north and from everywhere else that we were scattered and brought us back into our lands. Do you have a reference for that biblically? Yes, I do. Jeremiah 16:14 and 15. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands whither he had driven them. So that was the story of the arrival of the African Hebrew Israelite community to Israel, and connecting it with the biblical prophecies and showing how providence had been operating all along. Thank you so much for sharing these moments with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and also leave me a comment down below. And I'll be looking forward to continuing to expose you to the African presence here in Israel. Until then, thank you so much and have a great day.